Hello and welcome to our continuing coverage of the Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan's visit to Washington and the historic meeting with President Donald Trump. We're live from Washington overlooking the White House. As you can see, it's a very sunny November day. The temperatures are quite cold, just above freezing, and it tells you possibly the atmosphere, what's going on just down the road. The first couple, President Erdogan and Emine Erdogan, was greeted by President Donald Trump and the First Lady Melania Trump at the South Portico entrance of the White House just about an hour ago. The couples had a short meet and greet before heading inside. The two leaders then briefly addressed members of the press before heading behind closed doors for bilateral meetings. We understand that those bilateral meetings have ended, but moments before that, President Erdogan spoke just a little while ago. Here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
Border is holding very well. The ceasefire is holding very well. We've been speaking to the Kurds, and they seem to be very satisfied. As you know, we've pulled back our troops quite a while ago because I think it's time for us not to be worried about other people's borders. I want to worry about our borders. We got plenty of borders to worry about. I want to thank the president for the job they've done. Again, and Turkey recently has captured over 100 ISIS fighters, and they are taking care of them.
All right, let's bring in our guests for some analysis on this visit. Joining us is Hamdi Rifai, who's the executive director of the Council of United Syrians and Americans, and Ali Demirdas, who was a Fulbright scholar, before earning a PhD in political science from the University of South Carolina. Gentlemen, good to have you back on set. It's a wonderful day out in Washington. We can see the White House out here and the Washington Monument and the Lincoln Memorial. What a great view.
Thank you for having us on.
Good to have you on. All right, so in this segment, let's sort of concentrate on what's going on the ground in terms of Syria. For many years now, we've heard from the Turkish side of a desire to create a safe zone. And this is sort of like the reason for them to conduct their third military operation into northern Syria with Operation Peace Spring. Hamdi, let me start with you. The Syrian safe zone, is it going to work?
I certainly hope so, and I think all the indications are that it's already working. We've already seen a reduction in the violence in many ways. There were obviously some terrorist attacks in Qamishli the other day, but Turkey's not in Qamishli, so to speak. So, you know, what's happening is there's a minor influx of some incidents, but overall, I think it's a much better situation than it was before. People are starting to talk about maybe refugees returning to Syria. And after all, Syria is for all Syrians. Whether Syrians in the refugee camps are of Arab origin or Kurdish origin or otherwise, Syria is not a sectarian state in the sense that that area of the 32-kilometer zone is only for Kurds. It's for all Syrians. And I think it's particularly important to note, even before Turkey's entry into that area, in this third incursion now, there were a substantial number of Arabs there. As many as 50% of the population were already Arabic. So,
well, let me give you an example that I've personally lived through. A couple years ago, when I was doing extensive reporting from that region, we saw a lot of displaced Arabs from the eastern side of the Euphrates River who had been forcibly removed and had to flee to the western side. And I think this is something that rarely gets reported in terms of when Daesh or ISIS was cleared from that area that it had controlled for many years. The Kurds actually were also, I shouldn't say the Kurds, the YPG rather, were, as some Turkish officials call it, social re-engineering. They actually tried to repopulate some predominantly Arab areas. And this is actually, Turkey was very careful in sort of starting the operation in where it did in terms of Rasul Ayn and Tel Abyad, which are predominantly Arab areas. They didn't go into places like Ayn al-Arab or with this other name, Kobani, right?
Yes. That's the YPG labeled name of Ayn al-Arab.
Okay.
Actually, the name tells us that there is the demographic engineering going on there. Ayn al-Arab is predominantly Arab there, but YPG has changed its name to Kobani.
Okay, so, but this is actually...
I think it's a little bit dangerous to be talking about this demographic change because there are a lot of allegations of ethnic cleansing. I think there's an argument to be made that there was ethnic cleansing before, and I think that there are allegations now of ethnic cleansing. I think just like before, they lacked merit. Currently, they lack merit.
Okay.
Syria was never divided by Kurds could live here or Arabs could live there. In fact, I think it's important for us to note the largest population by number of Kurds is actually in Aleppo, not even in the area east of the Euphrates. So, you know, they have this dream of Rojava to make a Kurdistan, but the fact of the matter is that Syria is for all Syrians. And, you know, they aren't flying Syrian flags or Syrian freedom flags, they're flying YPG flags. Those are the people that are important for Turkey to oppose because they are the ones that are causing the problems.
Okay, but Turkey's military operation, dubbed Operation Peace Spring, it's basically a two-pronged operation. We've said on numerous occasions that this is in Turkey's national interest to remove terrorist elements from the YPG. Adi, just talk to us about sort of how much of a threat Turkey faced from the YPG along its border, because it is a fairly long border. It's over 900 kilometers long. We're talking about more than 550 miles.
Some argue that YPG doesn't constitute a threat for Turkey just because they haven't attacked. That doesn't mean that they are not going to attack. For example, when Rasulayn was cleared from YPG, what the Turkish forces found was under Rasulayn there is a 90-kilometer long tunnel system under the city, and I don't think YPG was wanting to bring metro station there. There was a reason why they dug the 90-kilometer long tunnel system. It was preparation for attack against Turkey.
Okay. The second leg of this operation was to basically create a safe zone in northern Syria in which up to 2 million Syrians could actually move back, whether they were internally displaced, fleeing some of the violence in the country, but also from Turkey. As you know, more than 3.5 million Syrians are in refugee status within Turkey. So my question to you, which I asked you at the beginning, is this going to work in terms of bringing the Syrians back to their own country?
I don't know whether those people are going to be willing to come back or not, but I believe that many of them will be willing to come back for a very simple reason. Given a choice between living in Syria or living in a refugee camp, the choice is rather clear. The only real impediment to that success is whether they feel under threat from Assad or the YPG. The YPG has had a history of suppressing dissent, other parties, etc. So the people in the refugee camps are not going to be willing to come back, not only because of Assad, but also because of other reasons. So when we create stability, when there's safety and security, I think we'll see that burden on Turkey be reduced, and those people will come back to Syria. And it won't matter for many of them that they're in a different town, because they will segue as the situation in Syria changes.
Are these joint patrols that are being conducted between Turkish and Turkish-backed forces and the Russians? I believe the fifth one has been just completed earlier on Tuesday. Any progress in terms of making that area, quote unquote, a safe zone?
We have seen the images of the YPG supporters throwing rocks and all sort of projectiles at the Turkish patrol vehicles in Ain al-Arab and a Kamishli area. And this basically tells us one thing: there is the YPG presence within the proposed safe zone, so evidently the joint patrols are not working. Okay. There has to be more done.
I think it's also important to remember that the SNA is actually the one on the ground most in these areas. So while there might be animosity towards the Turkish incursion right now, eventually I think they will understand, things will calm down, that these are Syrians within Syria.
And that's something that sort of Turkey had tried to do or has accomplished in its first two operations, especially with the first one, Operation Euphrates Shield, where after they moved into clear Jarablus, they made it a mission to actually train Syrians, to train their security forces. I made a trip out there marking the first year anniversary, and we saw that, you know, there's still, it's not a very safe area, but still, when you go out in the streets, it's being patrolled by Syrians.
Right. And I think that we'll see that as the relation between Turkey and the U.S. improves, that heat, these problems, these incidents are also going to get reduced. Right now, I think there are still a lot of people very emotional because they were living a dream of accomplishing something else, you know, a separatist state. When they come to terms with that dream is not possible, they have to live within a recognized state, then I think things will be much better.
The problem is neither the Syrian forces nor the Russian forces are capable of securing the hundreds of kilometers long Turkish-Syria border. The Syrian army has been depleted to the point that they cannot control Idlib, let alone the Turkish border. And Russia has only 300 military police along the Turkish-Syria border, which, you know, they are not capable of creating a safe zone in the area.
Okay, Hamdi, thank you very much. Let's actually cross